It's time to get you caught up with all things sports.
Yes! 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 Yes!
On the throw-in.
One thing is certain. None of this is possible without you, the listeners.
From baseball, football, wrestling, and more, covering local Cincinnati sports stories, news, and highlights.
Why is he always calling me meat?
With your host, Justin Trento.
When it's all said and done, we're going to look back and remember this is what started it all.
Available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Let's play the ball! Let's play the ball!
Alrighty, well, a very happy Monday evening and welcome to another week of the Throw-In. My name is Justin. Today is Monday, January 22nd of 2024, and boy, there are some huge conversations lurking around on Monday Night Raw that is just going to have to wait for conversation until our next episode. Because I already got ourselves a pretty impactful episode talking a lot about football in hour number one. I got a interview clip that I will be playing on this show in hour number two. And then I was like, you know what? The Reds Caravan is starting tonight. So I wanted to share that information with you guys, and I will probably take up a segment and just covering ins and out of the news. So if you guys were expecting to talk about the update of Seth Rollins' knee injury or the face-to-face interaction between Cody Rhodes and CM Punk that is taking place currently as we speak right now, and I kind of have it down here on the bottom, just trying to just see if anything explodes in the next few minutes, then you're going to just have to wait on just a little bit longer, because I want to really re-listen and re-watch everything and let us soak in for a little bit before I make any comments or weigh any means on it. So unfortunately, some bad news for you guys if you're there. But, man, I hope you guys had yourself a nice weekend. I know I did. I had some friends over on Friday night, and that was a blast. And then I ended up doing a podcast on Saturday morning. Followed by that, I did an interview that you guys will be looking at, watching tonight on this episode with Steve, a good friend of mine. And, then I went on about my day. It was just cold. It wasn't really cold and windy, I would describe it. But, I mean, I sat there and I got a chance to tune on to some football. And, then Sunday comes around, it's just a lot of laid back, relaxing, watching some really good football games. And, and then that just leads into today, where we get to talk about all those great football games. So I got to, we're going to kick things off with the divisional championship round this past weekend. And the one thing that I'm going to say, well, first of all, I think that they were a much better round set of games than what we saw back a week ago during the wild card weekend. Wild card weekend, we saw a lot of blowout games. And I think what we did see was the separation of teams that were ready to play playoff football in January to watching teams that weren't, maybe they earned their way to a postseason, but they weren't quite ready to play January playoff football. The Cowboys, the Browns, I mean, who else? Just Miami Dolphins in that case. So, but what we saw, I think, was more anticipated, closer games. And even if you didn't get a chance, even if, let me put it this way, even the Houston Texans, who would arguably got blown out 10-34, you say, well, that was a blowout game, Justin. And I would say, yes, it is. But majority of the game, at least the first half of the game, was nice and close. It was 10-10 going into halftime, I believe, from my understanding. So, I mean, there was a lot of great battles, but we learned a lot from every single team. And I think out of all 8 teams that performed over the weekend, at least 7 of those 8 teams could walk away, win or lose, with something, to look forward to this offseason. Well, prime example, let's take a look at the Texans who lost to the Baltimore Ravens. I've been saying this since week 18. This was a team that took a chance and thought that they were going to create a scheme back at last year's draft. Well, guess what? They drafted a quarterback, they drafted a defensive back, and we understood that they were long ways away from being anybody special. Well, guess what? They won the AFC South. They've had impressive games throughout the season. Not only that, they beat the Cleveland Browns in the wild card. They did what a lot of broadcasters, analytics, reporters, even their own organization did not expect them to do. They made it to the playoffs and they won a playoff game. Now, if that says anything, in the success that the Houston Texans had this season, they have an opportunity. Now they just go into this offseason. And I don't want to use the word opportunity, but they go into the offseason, now establish, hey, this is our potential. Where are we missing pieces? Because they are still missing plenty of pieces. And let's take these pieces and now apply it to the offseason. Let's pick up a couple of players to work with CJ Stroud and, the defense. And let's kind of put this team closer together. And who knows? Who knows what this Houston Texans team could be next season? But from a team who had no expectation to reach a certain level, okay? There was a lot of teams going into the postseason this year. Tampa Bay, Miami, Cleveland, Houston as one of them, Detroit as another one of them. They all earned their way into the playoffs. But I think beyond the playoffs, we were very uncertain on how far they were really going to go. Compared to teams like maybe the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, the San Francisco 49ers, where we kind of expect them. There's an anticipation that they were going to go so far. We didn't quite have an understanding of how far a lot of these playoff teams were going to go. So it becomes more of a shock and more of a surprise to us. And that's what I like about it, by the way. But the Houston Texans have nothing but positives talking about themselves. I mean, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers game for a moment. 24-21, the Niners walked away. It could have been anybody's game. The Packers gave the 49ers a run for their money, for sure. Absolutely. But what we really took away from this game on the opposite side of the W is that Jordan Love is that new fit for Green Bay. You look at the dynasty, or not, I want to say dynasty, but the legacy that has been left back at the quarterback position in Green Bay, among Brett Favre, among Aaron Rodgers for so many years. And we talk about shoes being filled. Well, Jordan Love, he's been this backup quarterback. Now filling in some shoes in Green Bay, he's had to hold himself to that standard. The biggest question coming out of Green Bay that I think is still asked to today is, are we comfortable moving forward with Jordan Love? And throughout the course of the year, we were skeptic, right? We were really nervous of the performance of Jordan Love because he wasn't really doing so well. But then he was able to find his rhythm, synchronize. And I think what a lot of people admire so much about Jordan Love is that he's adaptable. He's coachable, right? He's able to work on different schemes and transition. How do you not like that? Excuse me. So Jordan Love, I think, fits very well in what we saw this playoffs round and going toe to toe with San Francisco this past weekend, and how keeping it close. They now have something that they could work towards in the years to come out there in Green Bay. Let's look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had another close game with Detroit. It was a back and forth shootout for majority of the game until Detroit got ahead towards the end. But yet again, we talk about another team who had shoes to fill. Baker Mayfield was out of my, I given up on Baker Mayfield. Okay. I was such, I tell this story all the time, but I was such a defendant on Baker Mayfield. I was such, an advocate. I stood by him when no one else wanted to last season when he left Cleveland. I was saying on myself, listen, Cleveland made the worst, stupidest mistake in the world by letting him go. And they're gonna realize when Carolina has success. Well, guess what? That backfired. That failed. He gets a second chance this year in Tampa Bay, and I'm like, oh no. Well, how do you follow up on replacing the GOAT, Tom Brady in Tampa? You just don't. You just don't. And so far, Baker Mayfield has been very solid for the Buccaneers. I mean, surprisingly took them to the playoffs, and as far as they did, held his own against Detroit. He looked solid. He looked better than Josh Allen, in my opinion. He looked better than Brock Purdy, who is going to the NFC Championship game. But overall, it looks like Baker Mayfield may have a number one team that may go all in for him this offseason as he hits free agency again. And we possibly could see a 3-4 year run with Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I wouldn't mind it. I'd jump on that ship hands down. And then we get down to the Buffalo Bills, who lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, another close game. And I think the Buffalo Bills handed Kansas City this game. But if you looked at all 8 teams that either won or lost, Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, was one of those teams that probably could not hold their head up high. How do I best put this? I think the Buffalo Bills have to go into this offseason looking at themselves in the mirror and saying, where did we go wrong and how can we fix it? We are now 0-3 against the Kansas City Chiefs in the postseason. We obviously didn't have a good game. And we missed opportunities after opportunities after opportunities and a chance to win. And there was times throughout the game, because Kansas City was not perfect, but there was times where Buffalo could have ran away with the game. And they failed on a yet again opportunity. And I just think that, as what we saw with Miami, if Miami could maybe learn how to adjust, we don't know the future of the Jets, but is the window of success in Buffalo starting to run out? They're hanging on to a very thin thread. So I'm very skeptical out of Buffalo. And I think that this, like I said, out of all the 8 teams that performed over this weekend, Buffalo's the only team that probably really has to go back into the books, into the lines, and really ask those tough questions. And maybe it's the simple answers as, let's just stick with Sean McDermott, or let's just stick with Josh Allen because he's willing to adapt and change. Let's just improve what we can improve on and move forward. But, this is where I go back and I make the case. Are you okay settling for a playoff run each and every year, knowing that you're going to maybe only last the wild card weekend or the divisional round, but you can never get to the Super Bowl? Or, but the consolation prize is that you'd win your division 5 times out of every 6 years, and that 6th year you hit the wild card spot. Or would you rather have a year, 1, maybe 2 successful years saying, okay, we're actually go and win the Super Bowl, but then we know that our team is going to fall for a couple years? And I don't know about me, because that trophy and that Lombardi trophy, you're going to remember for years on end. I tell you, I know who won that Super Bowl 5 years ago. I couldn't tell you all 14 teams who participated in that Super Bowl 5 years ago. I know who won the Super Bowl back in 2000. I don't know every team who participated. I surely don't know all the division winners. The only thing that I know, you tend to recognize, teams who go to the Super Bowl every year, who go to the conference championship every year, like the Kansas City Chiefs and, the New England Patriots, and along their run, they've had success. But at the same time, if you think about the Dallas Cowboys playoff runs, there's just a team who couldn't get it done. Buffalo Bills, there's just a team who couldn't get it done. So, congratulations. We're down to the Final Four. We will see Kansas City and Buffalo. We will also see Detroit and San Francisco next Sunday. Those two winners will head off to Super Bowl 58 in 3 weeks from now. So we're coming up to the end of the football season and all that fun stuff. Well, hey, we're just getting started here on a Monday night. Please be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Have those notifications on so you don't miss a single episode. If you guys are watching us live, or if you guys are watching us at a later date, you guys could also download us on our audio platforms. Be sure to check out our website if you miss any blogs, news, information, audios, by going to www.tncsportstalkshow.com. That is www.tncsportstalkshow.com. We've got a great program coming up for you tonight. Coming up next, we'll talk some Cincinnati Bengals football as we get closer to the off season, and we'll talk about some Reds Caravan, as that's how you know it's really baseball season. All right, 2 hours program coming up next here You guys are listening to The Throwing on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, the Throwing wants to give a big shout out to StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, where you can create podcasts, videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out their free version today at StreamYard.com. I kind of got a glimpse at the Seth Rollins, or not Seth Rollins, of the Punk and Rose segment. Got to go back and rewatch it. Looked like it got very heated. We are just 5 days away from the Royal Rumble, which will be held this Saturday. And yes, this week we will talk a lot about the Royal Rumble, about our predictions and thoughts on who we think could possibly win. So I'm actually looking very forward to that. We would also get you guys ready for some championship playoffs round, as this Sunday we have both AFC Championship and the NFC Championship making their way. The winners will go on and represent their conference in the Super Bowl. So think about that for a second. Detroit, San Francisco, pretty good matchup, I think. And then you get Kansas City and Baltimore. And I'm like, I think this will probably be the best matchup, and that's game one of the two. So a lot of great stuff coming up this weekend. I was looking at everything that's kind of unraveling and unfolding, and I see that Mike Evans will become a free agent this season. And I was just thinking of myself in a hypothetical standpoint, because Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins that make up this dynamic trio, this unbeatable dynamic trio in Cincinnati, along with Jamar Chase, well, they're going to be free agency. Now, there's the conversation that they're more than likely that Tyler Boyd will not return to Cincinnati. And a lot of it has to do with the contract that that Cincinnati is expected to offer Jamar Chase. And I think it takes a big blow because, you got Boyd, Higgins, Chase, and it's like you got the match making heaven. You got the three aces in your pocket, and you can't hold them. You got to get rid of one. And how are you going to be able, and you could only hope that you don't lose both of them. It's always good to learn, to get new talent, develop new talent, and maybe, Chase can synchronize with another group of people okay, fine. I just, when you have such a, the 1-2-3 punch combination that works, think about this. It's already bad enough to sit there and say you need that number one receiver so that, when they block him, you could go to your number two receivers. And Boyd and Higgins both, expressed that tremendously, especially last season. But I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, if you can't get Boyd and you could possibly get Higgins, could you think about the Bengals potentially going after Mike Evans, even if it's a 1-year deal or even a 2-year deal? Boyd, I think maybe is a little bit more in his prime. I think he's, I believe he's younger than Evans. But Evans has a decorated background. Maybe throw him in at that number 2 slot. Higgins now number 3. You got Irving Jr. or Sample on number, in the tight ends position. And then you can still get away with signing Jamar Chase. Maybe even get Jamar Chase to sign a back end contract where you're paying him more at the back end of the season. And then it's like, now you can maybe then pay, Mike Evans up front. I mean, I know from my understanding, and the last thing I heard about the report of it, Mike Evans is very interested in working out a deal with Tampa Bay. And if so, I think that's perfectly fine. But I think the Bengals have to do their due diligence this season because they can't, you go put in all your chips onto Jamar Chase, which I do think is appropriate because I wouldn't lose the Chase and Burrow combination. But then I would definitely fight for T. Higgins, and you have to make a deal. You have to make a contract. And then from there, you have to find a way to get some sort of, whether it's a guy off of a free agency. Let me put it this way. The Bengals need to avoid a hit in their slot receivers this offseason. They got so many other positions to worry about. Apparently they want to look at this offensive line that is so ungodly terrible in my eye, in a lot of people's eyes. And okay, you could always look for rooms of improvement, but it has been the number one topic for the Bengals for the past 3 years, and they just seem never to be able to get it to where they like it at. So, and if asking me, I'm saying reevaluate the situation. I don't necessarily blame the offensive line for all of Joe Burrow's sacks and tackles. I understand they get paid a lot of money, but these guys are designed to block for 5, 7, maybe 10 seconds at best. I want you to sit down in a crouch position and have to throw your hand behind, through your crotch and try to block somebody. I want you to be in a crouch position, cannot move, and to be able to beat the guy coming in front of you that has maybe a 5-yard sprint advantage in your direction and be able to stand your ground. It is not an easy job. Even I don't care how much you pay them. You ain't just getting the best of the best. So to me, I defend a lot towards the offensive line. What I saw was a solid group of guys last year. And what I saw is that you have to relook at where that problem is. So you focus on the last 3 seasons in one position. Last year, we took a defensive hit. Okay, it wasn't about just getting rid of certain players in the backfield. It's about replacing them. That's one thing we lacked of doing. We said, hey, we're going to bring in young talent and we're going to develop young talent because we believe in them. And that only got us so far. And now, on top of that, when we can definitely use another backfield personnel, we can definitely use another offensive line. Now we got to look at receivers. And I'd admit that our tight end position isn't that well. We're up in the, are we choosing to keep Joe Mixon because we're desperate and we can't tackle on another project? Is that what it is? Jake Browning just had a successful year as a backup quarterback. I think you tried to renegotiate a contract for him to stay as a backup 1-2 punch along with Joe Burrow. This is not going to eat up some salary cap. This is honest. And if Bengals fans do not have a panic button, and they're not itching to push it a little bit, I'd be nervous. We already had seen what this division is capable of doing. We are seeing first-handedly how good this conference is. And we're expected to be up there among these other teams. We're expected to be up there with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. We're expected to be up there with Patrick Mahomes. He's proving to everybody that even on his worst days and not so great seasons, guess what? He gets the job done. And we're supposed to be in those conversation mix, but we're not. We're not in those conversations of another AFC championship. We're not sitting here in the middle of at the end of January saying, do we have a chance at a Super Bowl? We're trying to figure out how we can fix our offensive line, our defense, and now we have to fix in our wide receiver slots. I mean, this team is starting to slowly fall apart. I don't see there's any answers being made. And your answers can't always conclude in the draft. So you can't get Tyler Boyd back. At least that's the rumors that's been going around. He likes to explore his options. Doesn't mean he's going to get what he wants. Mike Evans is an opportunity. I'd be disappointed if we didn't at least attempt to go after Mike Evans. I want to go ahead and congratulate Cincinnati Bengals offensive coordinator. You talk about problems stacking on top of each other heading into this offseason. We're out of an offensive coordinator position, but we got to congratulate Brian Callahan, who is now signed and been hired for the head coaching position for the Tennessee Titans. So, he's just moving as a, I don't know how he's going to do as a head coach. I thought you had a pretty solid head coach in Mike Vrabel, but apparently not. So you're getting Callahan, head coach in the AFC division, maybe in a different division, but in the same conference that we may eventually see. All right, we come on back. Reds have a caravan, and this is how you kind of know it's officially baseball season for the Reds, because when the caravan is around town, they're trying to promote Reds baseball. They reach into Arizona next month, just literally less than a month away. Pitchers and catchers report. In about a month from now, you also get you're going to get first spring training games. So we're going to kind of break down those Red Caravan schedules for you coming up here next. You guys are listening to The Throne on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty. Because we are doing I'm displaying an interview that in the top of the hour. We're kind of just re-inserting things just a bit differently. I want to give a big shout out to Epidemic Sound providing the music for our podcast when we come back from breaks and take off for breaks. Epidemic Sound, where you discover world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com. Also like to give a big shout out to Canva, a online website that you can create videos, presentations, flyers, and all the above. Check out what they have to offer at canva.com. And, currently right now we got Cincinnati Bearcats, men's basketball in action. They're about halfway through the second, half, and they're down by 8, taking on number 7 Kansas coming into today's game. They've been having a tough run out there against or in the Big East. And I kind of figured that was going to happen. Same thing like football. You jump to a new conference, you're really playing a lot of these top matchups, and you can't quite expect the Bearcats just to do whatever they, just walk through them. They're currently 2-3 again in the Big East. They lost again back at home against Oklahoma this past Saturday, I believe. And their next stop is this coming up Sunday after this game. And they've just kind of been trailing. I know they're trailing solid by like 10, 12 at the beginning. Now they're just down. Bearcats are just trying to stay alive. And I don't know if they have enough to hold on. So we'll keep an update on that. Xavier plays tomorrow against Creighton, 8:30 tip-off. They're also they had a good game against Georgetown back on Friday night. I actually watched it. Went down to the final seconds where they won 92-91. So some college basketball there for you as well. All right. Well, I want to get into talking about some sports. Vladimir Gutierrez, who was released by the Reds last season, is holding workouts for teams that are interested in pitchers. And talking about pitchers, Aroldis Chapman makes the news as he has been officially signed to the Pittsburgh Pirates. I believe it was like 1 year, $10.5 million deal. We don't know the position he's going to be performing at. I know David Bednar is going to be the closer. They may still have him that way. But if you remember Aroldis Chapman, the closer for the Reds back in the day, years ago, he's been around on different teams. I know he's jumped to the Yankees, to the Cubs, and now he's with the Pirates back in the NL Central again. So it's going to be fun when we face the Pirates and we can see Aroldis Chapman. He still has the power. I don't know if he has the control of the stability, but he's still very, very dominant in his pitching. And so when you have the velocity, sometimes it allows you to give up the runs. And so I guess we're just going to see how all that unravels, but we will be seeing him a handful of times this season for sure. All right, so we talked about this, the Grand Reds Caravan. That's the indication that baseball is right around the corner. And this is something that I don't know how many other teams are doing, where they actually go to different states and different cities in order to just have like a Q&A and kind of get fans hyped for the season. And this was very new to me when I moved out here. And I know it's not really nothing to talk about, nothing special to really deal with, but it's an opportunity to kind of pick your brains and you just don't know. You get a combination of broadcasters, ownerships, and young and veteran players. And so here's the list of, this is an entire week thing. So we're going to start off with the Central Tour. You got Brent Sutter, Chase Petty, Edwin Arroyo, Jay Allen II, Corky Miller, which you will see a lot in this list. He'll be everywhere. Sean Pender, John Sadak, Brian Gizemschlock, and Tommy Thrall. And I apologize if I butcher any names to this. But I'm actually intrigued to talk, to hear what Brett Studer has to talk about. A guy who recently signed with the organization, who has that expectation of being, that lefty in that bullpen that we're trying to reestablish. Then you talk to young guys like Edwin Arroyo, who I think the Reds are expecting to see come up in the next couple of years, along with Jay Allen, John Sadak. Always great to talk to him. It's always great to have the conversation with Tommy Thrall. Like I said, these are opportunities to pick the brains. So the Central will have, if you missed out tonight, they had one earlier tonight at the Spooky Nuke Sports Champion Mall in Hamilton, Ohio. Which, shoot, we could have gone. Anyways, I digress. But they will have one tomorrow, January 23rd from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Lawrenceburg Event Center in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. That's going to wrap up their Central Tour. Next is heading out to the West Coast, or in the Western region. The West Tour is a little smaller group. You got Carson Spears, Jacob Hurtubise, Blake Dunn, Corky Miller, Monty Brenneman, Jeff Brantley, Nick Krall. And I look at this list, and I'm like, Nick Krall, I want to talk to. I really want to pick his, I kind of want to hear what he has to say about, we have this system, we have this, this overall game plan. We're trying to fill in pieces in between, and I think what's also maybe so frustrating is that it's a hit or miss with these guys. Maybe you get them to say anything, but a lot of times you won't. They will have a Wednesday session, January 24th, from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. And they also have a 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. in Evansville, Indiana. They didn't necessarily provide a specific location. Thursday, they will have one January 25th from 5 to 7 at the Castleton Square Mall in Indianapolis, Indiana. So if you're out there in Indiana, good time to get a chance to take a look at the Cincinnati Reds. The East Tour will consist of Andrew Abbott, Cam Collier, Sal Stewart, Reese Hines, Todd Benzinger, and Sam Grossman. They have sessions on Thursday, January 25th from 5:30 to 7:30, Charleston Coliseum in Covington and Convention Center, in Charleston, West Virginia. They'll also have a session on Friday, January 26th, 4:30 to 6:30 at the Huntington Mall in Huntington, West Virginia. Then they have a North Tour. They have Rhett Lauder, Ty Floyd, David Bell, Corky Miller, Tommy Thrall, Sam LeCure, Jeff Gruppe. They will have a Friday, January 26th from 6 to 8, Polarized Fashion Place in Columbus, Ohio. And then on Saturday, the 27th, they'll have one from 10:30 to 1 at the National Museum of the Air Force, the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. And then from 2 to 4, they'll also have one at the Apollo Career Center in Lima, Ohio. And then the final, last but not least, the South Tour. Buck Farmer, Sammy Stafura, Carlos Jorge, Ron Robinson, Jim Day, Phil Castellini, Brad Meter. They'll have one Friday, January 26, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Louisville Slugger Field in Louisville, Kentucky. Saturday, January 27th, 11 to 1 at the Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and from 3:30 to 5:30 at the Red Mile in Lexington, Kentucky. So overall, looking at this list, there's really not any big names that reach out to me. And I know we go through this on a year-to-year basis. Other than wanting to talk to Nick Thrall, wanting to talk to, maybe Phil Castellini, and then obviously it's a joy to talk to Jeff Brantley, and the broadcast team, but there's just nothing that really sparks out on why you want to go. You get majority of minor league guys who are trying to make a name for themselves and establish themselves, and in 2-3 years they're not even going to be on the ball. I like the Andrew Abbott. I like the idea of seeing Buck Farmer out there, I guess, although I was surprised that they brought him back. David Bell's a good person to talk to. I mean, other than that, there's really no major league players. And yes, the Reds have really done themselves last season by winning back the fans. But, even if you get one guy, Jonathan India, okay, Tyler Stevenson, Ellie De La Cruz is now much more exciting to talk to. He's not just some prospect down in the minor leagues that we are unsure about anymore. There's an expectation of him coming through. Putting him out there in one of these tours will mean a lot. You'll get a lot of people out there. Isn't that the whole point of having these caravans? Is to go out, answer some questions, interact with the players, and simply just give them a reason, saying, hey, baseball's right around the corner. If you get a chance, we will love you to come make the trip out to Arizona with us. And if not, hey, listen, come out to Great American Ballpark. We are a great team. We have a lot of great talented guys that are ready now. With how close we came last year, we want to go again this year. These are the guys we have at the table in the forefront that's going to do it. Along with that, we have some of these guys down in the minors still developing. And then, hey, our coaching staff is behind us. Our owners are behind us. Our managers, our broadcast group are behind us. Maybe get a couple of media guys who people listen to quite often behind us. And the next you have yourself a swell, caravan that you could be proud to talk about. I mean, let's put one together right away, just quickly. You throw in Spencer Steer. You throw in, let's throw in a pitcher. Pick out a pitcher. Graham Ashcraft. You got Graham Ashcraft. Let's throw in a fielder. And let's even throw in a fielder that we just signed, Jameer Candelario. Yeah, I'd be excited for that one right there. 2 guys. Let's throw in some minor league players, Edwin Arroyo, Sal Stewart. Okay, so that's 4. Let's pick one, David Bell, Nick Kroll, Phil Castellini, one of those 3. And let's pick 2 broadcasters, Jeff Brantley, Tommy Thrall. Okay, perfect. Whatever. Or, you know what? Jeff Brantley, and then, let's go with who else is there? John Sadak. Perfect. I'm going. You have convinced me to go because I could talk to the guys that are expected to be on the major league roster. I could pick their brains and see, how much better is this team today? What are some changes hey, Jameer, hey, you're coming into this ball club with them already established. They had that belief system. They came so close last year. And you should know you were on the Cubs and you guys were fighting for a postseason opportunity. So how do you carry that over, knowing that the Reds are having the expectation this year to either be a wild card or some people are counting them out, but they could be a division champion right then and there. I want to know about that. How are you going to contribute? Graham Ashcraft, I know that you've been up and down all last year, but your number is going to be called again somewhere in the middle of that rotation. You're going to be expected to go 5-6 innings an outing. How do you maintain the preparation for that throughout the course of the year? And let's talk about some of these younger guys. The major league roster is stepping up for you. They're setting that bar high, and you may have that number be called one day if Cruz comes out, okay, McClain comes out for injury. How are you expected to be prepared to fill in those shoes and pick up where they left off at if they go out? Nick Krall, hey, listen, last year we didn't see a whole lot of deals. This is the Nick Krall and Castellini's. Last year we were stuck, last year you really indicated, hey, this is that plan. You have that game plan for us. And I like to see it. But you can't miss opportunities again when it presents itself. So how are we going to avoid coming into the trade deadline into, September baseball if we're contenders and we're not making that deal? You do something like that around the horn and all these tours, you're really gaining fans to come out and pay, come out and hang, talk to you about it. All right, coming up on the top of the hour, you guys, we're going to be playing an interview I had over this weekend with a good friend of mine. He is the host and co-host, or he's the host and founder of not one but two podcasts. The one is Armchair Booking Wrestling podcast. It's been around for years. And then the other one is called Cubical Chat, which he's just, coming up on 2 years. We've talked about this in the interview, but I kind of pick his brains. His name is Steve Barber. He's a good friend of mine. We met, we met years ago, and we collaborated all the time. And so as we head into 2020, 2022, we kind of discusses about his recent podcast, about some things that are going on last year, 2023, and then everything to expect for 2024. So we will come back after the interview and can wrap up our show, talk to our show, because we still take you guys until midnight. But please enjoy the video of the interview that's coming up after this break. All right, hour number one's completed. Hour number 2 is coming up next. Thank you guys for tuning into the Throw-In here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Justin here from the TNC Sports Talk. What is going on, everyone? Justin here from the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. And in just a moment, we'll be talking about bringing on a good friend of mine, Steve Barber. He is the host of the Armchair Booking Wrestling podcast and Cubical Chat. Excited to bring him on. It's been a while to talk to him on our show. And we'll get into a lot of fun conversations here in just a moment. But before we could do so, we want to go ahead and give a big, quick shout out to StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, where you could create podcasts, videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out their free version today at StreamYard.com. All right. Well, without further ado, Steve Barber is here on the other line. Welcome. Thank you for taking your time. I've been trying to negotiate a time with you. I know the schedule lately has been very hard, but how are you doing today?
Doing all right, Justin. How you been?
I've been wonderful. Trying to, stay warm out of the winter weathers we've been having. We just actually, for people who don't know, we actually just did a podcast together. I joined on your show a couple of days ago, and but you are the host and I would say founder of two podcasts that you run simultaneously. One is Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast, which is a wrestling podcast that's been in the works for what, 2-3 years?
Actually, this June or July it'll mark 4 years.
4 years. Wow.
Yes, sir.
And then you just started up a recent podcast. Was it last year called Cubical Chat or the year before?
I want to say it's April will be 2 years. This coming April. Yeah, I was even thinking about that this morning. I was like, hey, wow, has it really been that long? And the Cubicle Chat was kind of my way of researching and talking about something other than wrestling, because the job I had at the time, the job that I actually left last May, at work, I started being known as the wrestling podcast guy because of Armchair Booking. And people at that, I mean, they did support. They were, they weren't like laughing at me, but they were like, "Oh yeah, you have the wrestling podcast," because then you find out all the people who are wrestling fans that, hey, why don't you listen to it, check it out, whatever. But at the same time, like, there's a lot more to me than just that, because I'm retired military. I actually have been to college. I mean, I actually have an MBA for God's sake. So it's not like I just focus on wrestling. I might have other stuff. In fact, we were talking, you were on the show, it was yesterday, and I actually pulled up Excel and, Microsoft Excel, and I'm actually really good at doing that. So I could, so there's, I try to be almost a jack of all trades, master of none, or master of very little. I can't really say I'm a master of anything, but yeah, the Cubicle Chat, the name came from some of the conversations that my coworkers and I were actually having. We were literally sitting in a cubicle farm.
Right.
And, and if people don't know what a cubicle farm is, of course, I mean, you walk into like an office setting and you see a bunch of cubicles and you see people in those cubicles. It almost looks like, I don't know, like chicken coops or horse stables.
Right. Yeah.
So the name Cubicle Farm was created at some point. And the conversations we were having, because we were all, I'd say, at least fairly intelligent people. So we were talking about anything and everything under the sun, and not wrestling. As every once in a while it would come up because something from wrestling would actually hit mainstream news. And so they would actually ask me, but then we were talking about other things too. Like yesterday, for example, before you came on Armchair Booking, I actually recorded an episode of Cubicle Chat talking all about the USS Pueblo, which was a ship that was actually captured by the North Koreans, and then the North Koreans still have it. But I was talking about that. I mean, I've talked about military stories. I've given movie reviews, TV show reviews, music reviews, like concert reviews, because the latest concert I went to a few weeks ago, I went and saw Trans-Siberian Orchestra in Dayton. I'd been waiting, 30 years to see them, even before they were known as Trans-Siberian Orchestra, before their previous name of Savatage. So I've been a fan of theirs for a while. Saw Kiss a few months ago back in the fall. Took my son to see Kiss.
I missed that one. I mean, they're on their ending tour. Or they're
done. They're done now. Yeah, they're actually done. But I mean, those guys, they're in their 70s. I mean, so I can't get mad at them for.
But they're still performing like they're in their 20s. To be honest, which is incredible.
Exactly, and I've just given things like that. Sometimes it almost feels like I'm doing like an editorial, but I mean, I always want to keep the shows, the episodes, going. And just recently, I became part of the Stoveleg Media family because
Yes.
I happened to. Um, it's kind of a weird train in a chain of events that kind of happened. I was listening to Chris Jericho's podcast. Well, and Chris Jericho, yes, he's a wrestler. He's also the lead singer of a band, Fozzy. And, well, he also has a podcast. And his podcast, yes, he has wrestlers on there, but he has so many other things going on, because he's had actual other, basically rock stars, because Chris Jericho is a legitimate rock star. But one of the shows he had on there were these two guys, Jamie Boggs, John Bailey, and they were talking about a serial killer in Montana, back in the 80s. But they have their own podcast called True Crimecast. And how they got in touch with Chris Jericho was Chris Jericho actually went to school with a guy, and he was friends with a guy who later on ended up being a serial killer. And so they had contacted him about that, some years ago, and he came on their show. And since then, they've been on his show, I want to say at least 4 times, maybe 5. But I started listening to their podcast, and it turns out I could hear their accents. They're from Berea, Kentucky, which is actually not that far away from where you live in Kentucky, and really not that far away from me either in Southwest Ohio. And I started listening to their show, got in contact with them. And then it turns out they also had a show called Bless Their Hearts, which was what they call their palate cleanser, where they're not talking and researching murder all the time, because that can kind of get to you. That can screw with your head after a while, just looking at things like that. Got in touch with them. I actually have written a few stories for them since then. Well, they're part of the Stoveleg Media family. And so the owner, director, producer, the main guy who runs Stoveleg Media, I named Nate Metz. I actually got in touch with him through, I fact, it was Jamie that said, "Oh yeah, here's his email address. I'm pretty sure he'd love to come on the Cubicle Chat." And I was not intending on becoming part of the Stoveleg Media family at the time. It just ended up happening over time, because Nate actually, because he and I actually talked about like running a podcasting network, not just doing a podcast, because he has his own podcast called Mysteries of the Ohio Valley, where he talks about what he says, everything from Pittsburgh to Paducah, everything along the Ohio River, basically. And, since, obviously we became friends, and now I'm part of the Stoveleg Media family, which includes those 3 aforementioned podcasts, along with a lot of other ones, so go check that out as well. But yeah, the Armchair Booking podcast, that's not part of a network right now. Possibility could be in the future. We've talked about my co-host, Dwaylen Davis. You stepped in yesterday. Dwaylen is actually on a hiatus right now. He's got a lot of stuff he's trying to take care of, and kind of very similar to when the podcast first started, and he was not able to join as co-host, because Dwaylen and I actually talked about doing this podcast a good 2-3 years before it ever actually came to fruition. But I was very grateful to Kyle for stepping in and being the co-host for it was just a barely over a year. But then he had to step down because he has stuff going on. It happens. I mean, you and I both know what that's like. I mean, we have families, and so sometimes family things have to take priority, and other things, job matters have to take priority. And but right now Dwaylen's on a hiatus because he's been running like nonstop, and he just, and I get it. And so he actually gave me the blessing to have people come on as co-hosts like yourself and some other ones that we have coming on. Undetermined when he's going to come back, but he also has his own podcast called the Intellectual Rockstar, which he's also had kind of put on the back burner for a bit,
Right.
But
I do follow that one, and I hope that when he, comes back from his hiatus, I can find a way to get in contact with him and get him on an interview as well, because he has so much other stuff going on beyond Armchair Booking podcast. Just real quick though, because I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of radio. I grew up and lived by the radio in the sense. So audio for me is a lot better than, putting my show out, and I'm sure same thing for you, but putting on YouTube is just just an addition to what we're trying to do. and it means something, but it doesn't. It doesn't. It's not what we're really. I don't have that camera face,
Oh, right. Neither do I. Trust me. I'm
So, but when I hear podcasts often, sometimes people click and people don't click. It's a chemistry thing. I listen to a radio station in San Diego. They've been, in some morning show. They're called Ben and Woods. And when I was listening to them, they attract my attention. That's why I gravitate to them, but they just click. It's two guys that know how to click. When it comes down to you and Dwaylen, he's the encyclopedia. That's his nickname. It's been established before. I'm just gonna call you, I'm gonna call you Colonel. I mean,
Colonel.
I don't. Do we established you a nickname?
No.
Yet,
I mean,
or-
Stunning Steve. I mean, that came about.
Stunning
Kyle actually gave me
Steve?
that name. And Dwaylen is Delicious Dwaylen. Now that one
Okay.
came about because his wife referred to him as that on Facebook, and then
Yeah.
Kyle actually said that ought to be your nickname, and I just replied, "Done." And that was, probably a year and a half ago or so, and so it's been his nickname ever since.
But the reason why the reason why I'm saying, and I'm just throwing it out there as a suggestion. I mean, maybe you want to commit as a Colonel, because I see you kind of put everything together. You got you put the platform out there for everyone to succeed at Armchair Booking Podcast. But you guys had to go back all the way to high school days, and you guys just had this chemistry that clicks so well. For that, you guys have not done a single in-person session before, and you guys could just read each other's minds. You guys, kind of could pick each other up. Something that I say a good amount of podcast or a good amount of audio productions are that there at that level.
Yeah, because like I said, Dwayne and I, we've been friends since high school, our junior year of high school, actually. And that was actually when I met him, because this was in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, in Christian County High School. And I moved to Hopkinsville in 1988, in the summer of 1988. That was right before my sophomore year, or mine and Dwaylen's both our sophomore year. I'd seen him around the halls, but I didn't really know him. It was the next year when we actually had I think it was actually probably at lunch or something like that, because we had figured out we had a lot of common friends, and and so we started hanging out, because one of the things I always joke and say, we came to school both wearing the same AC/DC t-shirt, and it's like, hey, that's kind of a bonding thing. If you look, I'm wearing an Iron Maiden shirt right now, so I mean, I'm self-professed metalhead, and that's one of the things when you see another metalhead, or somebody who's into the same kind of, but your same interests, you kind of gravitate towards them. And that was even before we both figured out we were both wrestling fans. That actually didn't come about for a while, but when we did, it was like, hey, that's something else. And so, yeah, he's just been one of my best friends, one of my closest friends now for 30 plus years. And yeah, that was before podcasting was even a thing. This was before everybody had the internet. It was before email, everything. And we had actually lost touch for a little bit after I went into the Air Force. And it was just, we happened to both move at the same time, and we had just lost touch. And then when we finally got back in touch through, I think it was Facebook, where it's like, hey, boom. And we just picked up like it was there. And the last time I've actually seen Dwaylen in person is actually almost 10 years to the day.
Okay.
Yeah, because he and, they had a house fire or apartment fire where he lived, and they lost almost everything they owned, and so I actually gathered a bunch of stuff, and I drove down because he now lives in West Paducah. And
Right.
I actually drove down and delivered a lot of stuff to him over a weekend, and then came back. But that's the last time we were able to actually hang out, because I think he posted that picture. It was either yesterday or the day before on Facebook.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna have to look at that. Steve here from Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast at Cubical Chat. Now, you are the host of 2 podcasts that you've created. Can you kind of just walk us through how was 2023 for both podcasts for you?
2023 started out very hectic for both podcasts, and that was due to my work schedule. And this was actually part of the reason why I ended up leaving my previous position. So as far as Cubicle Chat, I also had a co-host on Cubicle Chat at the beginning of 2023, but he stepped down not long into 2023. It was another former Air Force co-worker, but he's still a good friend of mine, a guy named Mikey, and his heart was just not into it. And so that's when I started running solo. So there was a lot of changes going there. So I started out the year with a co-host. By the time 2023 ended, I did not have a co-host because that happened pretty early. And I had actually moved on to, got added on to like a podcasting family, which technically didn't start until the beginning of 2024, when I was officially added to their website. But I mean, it's been a little hectic because trying to keep up with recording, trying to make sure I stay on some kind of schedule, that's kind of bounced around a little bit and there was also a lot of things that happened, in like my family, because I told my wife at the beginning of 2023, I said, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of big changes happening this year. Well, at the beginning of 2023, also, I was working, she was not working outside the home because she also has a travel agent business that she runs. But then a few months into it now, she's working at a tax preparation place, but we also pulled our son out of school because of some issues with the school, and some other incidents that had happened. And so now I'm home during the day because my son is being homeschooled. And so now I'm looking for work because I left my job in May because that was actually something else. If I hadn't, my son would have been at home all day long by himself, and a part of that's, yes, our choice, but adjusting everything around that, because typically I was recording both podcasts at night. Now, just like yesterday, I recorded both of them during the day.
Morning,
yeah. So, I mean, that kind of depends. But if Joyland's available, of course, I mean, we have to do it whenever we are both available.
Right.
I don't want to force it and say, hey, you need to come on at this time, because sometimes things happen. But we were talking about going live, like what you do in StreamYard, and I had actually looked into it. But then when I had to take a hiatus, so I'm like, all right, let me hold off for a little bit. But it may give me a chance to actually bring it up live, by myself and just see how it goes, just kind of experimenting and then go from there.
Right.
But yeah, 2023 they just happened to be a lot of changes that were driven by the changes that were happening in my personal life.
One thing I love about Cubicle Chat, and I've noticed a lot, it's provided an opportunity for you specifically to take time. I mean, I don't know how many episodes I've heard you do it with your own daughter.
Yeah.
About movie reviews and stuff like that. So that, I think being able to just connect with, and do something that you love doing, but with your family, and being able to tag along, your daughter with it too. I just think that is also it's also funner to listen to.
Right. And she likes doing it. Now she's back in school.
Right.
She's actually asked me not to say where she goes to school just because there's, she's afraid of being doxxed, which I get it. Yeah. But she's back in college right now. She had actually spent 9 months in Orlando as part of the Disney College program, and now she's, of course, back in school. But she likes doing the reviews. But at the same time, if she's busy with class, and she also works, so I fit that around her schedule. And if she can't do it, she can't do it. Now, she's actually had ideas for shows, but most of the shows with her do revolve around something with pop culture, whether it be movies, TV shows, because I think we reviewed Stranger Things, just things like that. And, I've tried to get my son to come on. He's giving me ideas, but he's very, very camera shy. He does not want to be in front of a camera.
Cubicle Chat is not it's not on YouTube, is it?
No, Cubicle Chat is audio only.
So
any audio platform that you can think of, Cubicle Chat is more than likely there. If it's not there, let me know. cubiclechatpodcast@gmail.com, and I will do what I can to get it added.
talking about that, yeah, can you also just rattle off everything for both Armchair Cubicle Chat, from social media, contacts, and where you can find the podcast at?
Oh, Armchair Booking. The email address is armchairbooking@gmail.com. You can find it on Facebook at facebook.com/armchair booking. You can also find it on Instagram. If you just look up Armchair Booking Podcast or Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast, you can always find it there. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Twitter. Twitter, it's at Booking Armchair, because when I was first setting up everything, I found out that at Armchair Booking was already taken. Somebody's basically squatting on it, and I'm like, what are the odds of that? But somebody already has it. But of course, on YouTube, you just look up, I guess, put up there on the screen at Armchair Booking Podcast. You can find it there. YouTube, apparently, you can't put Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. It's just way too many letters. They won't allow it.
Right.
But Cubicle Chat, it's on Facebook and it's on Twitter or X, or as Dwayne and I start calling it, Twix. On that, it's at cubicle_chat. Tell me it doesn't make sense. Twitter, X, Twix.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, now you're gonna start calling it Twix, and I hope your audience starts calling it Twix. They'll say, hey, go to Twix and go check it out. But yeah, there it's at cubicle_chat. And both shows are on every audio platform. We run it through Spreaker, kind of like the way you run your audio, also through Spreaker.
Yep.
And for Armchair Booking, there's also a merch site. It's tpublic.com/user/armchair-booking-podcast. Now, if you see the coffee mug, I actually showed this yesterday on the show too. You can no longer get these tumblers, but this is actually where I got it from. But you can get regular coffee mugs. You can also get T-shirts. You can get pillowcases. You can get hoodies. I mean, you get a mask. I was actually just wearing it. I had to wear my mask yesterday. There we go.
Notebooks. I mean, I know I haven't invested into them yet, but I probably should, because I always, take notes, and I got, all the notepads, and I need to invest into some notebooks with my.
You can get a phone case.
Yep.
Like what I have there. And if you notice, I mean, there's different logos, different styles. And yeah, this mask, I mean, I was just wearing it whenever I was cleaning out the cat's litter box, because I don't know if you have a cat or not, but when you start scooping that litter, and if your litter is good, of course, it holds the smell down. But unfortunately, when you start trying to scoop it, it comes right back up.
Right.
And so I had that to kind of block out that smell, because, of course, urine is nothing but ammonia.
Right.
It can actually hurt your lungs. But yeah, you get all sorts of merchandise, there at the T-Public site, just like because I have a TNC Sports Talk shirt. Obviously, I'm not wearing it right now, but I do have one of your shirts. You have an Armchair Booking shirt.
I was not synchronizing today. I wish I was.
I wasn't even, I'd have to find the shirt, because I have so many T-shirts now.
I just rolled out of bed, looked like this. I just completely forgot. All the links and the descriptions and everything will be posted down below into the descriptions. Anything exciting that you're looking to try to advance forward this year out of your podcast?
Besides going live, hopefully live on video, which means going live straight to YouTube, Facebook, and probably Twitter or Twix. Besides that, trying to get more interviews. I did mention yesterday for Armchair Booking, I wasn't joking when I said, yes, I have been trying to get Shannon Moore on the show. And, I actually talked to him for about 15 seconds once. He said, call me back, because he was driving or he was talking to somebody. And I did. And one time, it's like the phone got hung up on right away. And another time I left him a message, but I'm like, I'm not going to chase after anybody for that, because, but trying to get him on the show, maybe part of that is because we're from the same area of North Carolina, because I lived in North Carolina before I moved to Kentucky. And so I know we know some of the same people, because my stepbrother did the wiring for his pool. He was the one who actually did the electrical wiring for his pool. So I know we know some mutual people, but just trying to get more interviews on Armchair Booking, and trying to get more interviews, non-wrestling interviews, obviously, on Cubicle Chat. And, because I started doing that already, a little bit on Cubicle Chat because I had Jason Emmett from the Mixtape podcast. Because they actually had me on their podcast as well, because that's another podcast that really focuses on pop culture. But we were discussing, well, they actually had me on the show to discuss 1980s heavy metal. And, you know, which, like I said, perfect, because I'm wearing, in fact, I was wearing this shirt when we recorded that show. I just not thought about that. And, you know, but I had Jason because Jason has also written a novel, and he's like the audiobook version. He actually has his own podcast. It's called Lyric, the Novel. And so I invited him on the show to help promote that, because they had me on their show. And that part of that was, you know, even though we weren't discussing wrestling, but part of it actually helped me promote my two podcasts. You know, so trying to get more interviews, trying to find more topics to talk about. Cubicle Chat, I've also kicked around the idea of more than once a week, you know, just in like having certain subjects on certain days. Right. You know, like Monday would be one thing, Tuesday be something else, Wednesday, you know, just kind of having it like that. But it's a matter of, okay, do I have the time to do this every day? Or maybe like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because I noticed that the throw-in, you're starting to do that kind of a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing. But I mean, I get it, you know, with the same thing though, when you have the time, you know, because sometimes, you know, we have other stuff going on. Obviously I'm not working right now. I'm not going to call myself unemployed. I'll just call myself on either a sabbatical or semi-retired. Right. Because I mean, I have been looking for work. I'm actually talking to somebody tomorrow. I'm having a Zoom interview with somebody about a different kind of thing, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not, because it's very borderline MLM. And I'm like, you know, I've done stuff like that before. It doesn't always work. I also do have my side hustle with something that, and you already know about it, it's something that's not an MLM. You know, where I need to get my license, trying to get all my licenses, but it's personal financial advisor. Yeah. You know, so I'm trying to get that set up as well. Plus maybe get a side hustle, or almost like the gig economy, you know, where it's freelance, you know, helping people with Excel or Word or PowerPoint, just things like that. You know, but I totally forgot where I was going with all that. But you're talking about changes for the show. Just, I'm always looking for ways to improve stuff, because as soon as you think, and this is really anything, not just podcasts, and as soon as you think, oh, I could just coast from here on out, that's when complacency sets in. And, you know, when complacency sets in, then your quality can actually, you run the risk of it dropping. Right. You know, so. I mean,
we've talked about it before. Podcasting, it takes you a year, 2 years to build up the fan base that you have now. And then you're gone for 1 week and you just lose all of it. So, I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from. You know, listen, I'm looking forward to what you guys have, you know, what you have to offer, what Doylan has to offer, what Cubicle Chat has to offer, all in 2024. This is supposed to be a big year. Okay. We're supposed to continue to grow. And I can't wait to watch and see new stuff that comes from you guys. I always appreciate being on your show. Anytime you call me, I always do my best to try to be on and give you the best that I got. And I, you know, just that's the podcasting world, right? I mean, just supporting one another. So, Steve, thank you so much for taking the time of your day to speak with us. And we can't wait to see you and what you guys do throughout this year. And hopefully we get you guys back on throughout the course of the year.
Oh, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Hopefully I can come on to the throw-in and TNC Sports Talk once again to support my friend Justin. And so we try to give you a shout out on every show. Every once in a while we miss, and I apologize for that if we don't give you a shout out, but you know, we try to at least, you know, say, hey, go check out Justin and the throw-in, because I know you actually had your own period where you couldn't do anything for a while, but I mean, you know what, having your back operated on, that kind of, that'll kind of suck the wind right out of your sails.
Yeah, I completely understand that, but we'll get back together definitely again. Either I'll see you on my, you know, on your podcast, or you know, I'll see you on my, you know, on mine, whichever one works the best. But thank you again, and we wish you the best in 2024.
All right, Cool. We'll see you.
That's Steve Barber, Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast, Cubicle Chad. You can find all the information in the descriptions alone. Go get them a nice follow and share on their social media pages as well. That's it. Until next time, you guys are listening to us here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, welcome on back in here. You want to give us just a big shout out here in hour number 2 to Spreaker, which is more than just a listening device, listening platform. You can download your podcasts, monetize your podcast, view analytics, much more, all at Spreaker.com. Distribute your podcast across all big major platforms through Spreaker.com. Presented by iHeartRadio. And you could check all of our missing episodes up on there. The podcast that you listened to moments ago is going to go up there itself here, probably a little bit later on tonight. I haven't done it. I probably should have done it while the interview was taking place, but I didn't. But I got to give a shout out to Spreaker, who helped us along the way, allow us to put our platform together there. I just got to go out and say it's going to be a very, very, very short segment because I want to get into the bottom of the hour. There's a couple good things to talk about, but I do want to just go out there and just mention that Steve, like you said, I met him back in 2021, I believe, when we went to a local NWF wrestling event down here in Covington, Kentucky. And, excuse me, just getting into the podcasting myself, I didn't really quite know what we were getting into or how far this was going to go. And, just you learn so much with other podcasters. He has really done a tremendous job over the past couple of years, just, expanding his role and his versatility, and his knowledge to other podcast links, something that I think that I've struggled a bit more. I'm open to it, but I kind of I've always just been the one, here, just stay focused in that straight line that what I'm doing and just, hopefully I gain success through what I'm doing. But no, man, he's a tremendous guy. We talk almost every day. He's my go-to guy when I got questions about wrestling or, and that's just, started off with wrestling and it worked its way itself into, if I got a football question, if I got just a question that I want his opinion on, just someone else's opinion on, because sometimes I like to look at things in multiple viewpoints. In order to help me either understand something better or to create a more broader opinion. So, I've known him, for the past couple of years. He's a really good guy. And he does a lot. He does a lot of podcasting. He's been on multiple shows. So, and we do have the description in the link below. So check him out. And tomorrow, Tuesday, January 23rd, will be a premiere of this interview that you guys just witnessed as well. So if you guys are just looking to check out that interview itself, and I also sent him the link too, so he will get an opportunity to, to be able to shine and display that on his own social media pages as well. So hopefully he does that. Before we go to break, I kind of want to just WWE did conclude tonight, and as I mentioned, I'm not really going to get into a lot of the conversation because I think there needs to be more time, and I kind of want to rewatch a couple segments to really give you a bigger, better, broader expansion of my thoughts and opinions. But a lot of good things. One of the biggest stories for me, there's two big topics for me. One is Seth Rollins and what how the WWE is expected to carry him through WrestleMania. Was he going to vacate the title? He was to open up Raw, and I did watch it, but I'm not going to share anything like that tonight. And then two, CM Punk and Cody Rhodes go face to face right before the Royal Rumble, which, by the way, is this Saturday. And then in the main event, you have Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre, and that I'm not going to go spoil anything. So we will definitely talk about wrestling on Wednesday night when we come back. Midst through the week, but a lot of talk about. But congratulations though to Cody Rhodes, who the WWE 2K24 video game is actually headed out. Is actually going to be released March 8th this year. For the early editions and the deluxe editions, you can get the cover of that will be Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, which I think is an incredible sight to see another, women figures on the cover of a wrestling video game. But your standard edition will consist of Cody Rhodes. And then you have this like premium ultra deluxe celebrating 40 years of WrestleMania. So that's going to be, the cover is the Immortals of WrestleMania itself. So, I know Cody Rhodes has said a couple of things about being on the cover of the video game. I'm not going to draw too much attention to it tonight. So, matter of fact, we're going to take our last break of the evening. When I come back, I do want to close out with a statement in regards to the Cincinnati Reds and its upcoming regular season. So let's get to our last break and talk about that. You're listening to The Throne on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, well, you know what? I mean, I explained how earlier that the Bearcats were just barely hanging on, and that's all it was. They ended up following to the to Kansas City. Uh, gosh, yeah, let me get you the score here in a second. So they actually fell down to Kansas City. Where was it? I just had it popped up. Come on. It was like 74, 74 to 69. And this is just, I mean, it's a tough loss because now they move to 2-4 in conference play, but you remember why they are the way they are. You know, we got to remember, hey, this is their first year under a new conference. You're playing a really tough schedule, and it's not going to stop from here. I think, the Bearcats are going to they just got a rude awakening. It's not like they're a bad program, but they're probably used to, taking on more, probably when you're so used to taking on teams that just seem to be able to, just play, I think the Cincinnati Bearcats are used to being at the top of their division, being good. That when they finally go play these new conference teams, they're treading into water and territory that they don't even know about. And with all that being new to them, it's just kind of hard. So they'll get a crack at it again later on this week. So, but I talked to you guys here a lot about the Cincinnati Reds baseball's off season, and I know I may be sounding like a sitting duck and repeating myself here all the time, but the first thing I do when I jump on this laptop every day is I check the free agent market, and I check to see who gets picked up and signed. Like we saw Matt Carpenter go back to St. Louis, and it's on a 1-year deal. We just talked about Aroldis Chapman getting signed to the Pittsburgh Pirates. And there's some free agents out there that I think are still up for grabs. Kurt Casale, Manny Pena, Mike Zunino under catchers. You still got Cody Bellinger, Jock Peterson, from my understanding, Brandon Crawford. I'm just going down the list here. Josh Donaldson, Evan Longoria, Eduardo Escobar, Tommy Pham. And I think one of the, Jurickson Profar, Travis Jankowski, Corey Dickerson still available. I mentioned Cody Bellinger, Michael A. Taylor, Adam Duvall, Billy Hamilton. You look at pitchers, you still got Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Clayton Kershaw, Brandon Woodruff. So I think one thing that has in common, whenever I see a deal that is being made, because that's between now and spring training, I think we're going to see a handful of deals be presented. But whenever I see a deal being made, I get in an instant look of, well, why aren't the Reds doing anything? And even though I'm understanding on, okay, well, the Reds have picked up where they left off at and yada yada, they're set. They claim that they're set for regular season. But see, and they have added players, but they're still missing so many. Right? I mean, we've talked about this. They want to throw Spencer Steer out there in the outfield and think that they're going to fix their outfield issues, which is finding a powerful guy to play outfield. They're still missing usually you find a powerful at bat at first base. And you're reluctant to turn towards a guy like Christian Encarnacion Strand and Jameer Candelario to fill in those roles. Same thing at third base. So, and I just don't think that these guys they're nothing for me. There's an excitement, but you see, Christian Encarnacion Strand, we really honestly do not know what he's capable of doing. And this is his first official year that we're expecting him. We're throwing a lot of these young guys out there this year and say, you're going to either sink or swim. And that's where I get a bit, I get a bit upset listening to that. Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McClain, all were brought up through the course of the year. They pulled that plug and said, you know what, we're going to, if the fans want them, why not? It's not going to hurt. And yeah, they made an impact. But this is that important year this year that if you put too much on a young Paul player, they can honestly break. And if you don't provide that equal balance of, hey, they're still developing and they're still correcting themselves. And I think you're going to find struggle in at least a handful of them. And so as much as I want Ellie De La Cruz to work out or Matt McClain to work out or even, CES to work out, you got to be cautious about how you're using them and what type of role you're using them the year after. It's the same thing that goes with Graham Ashcraft, Nick Lodolu, and Hunter Green. So when I look back at these free agent trackers, there's so many, possible free agents that we're not, is still available that we're just not looking at quite yet. And yeah, Nick Kroll may be saying that, hey, we're done with big names being signed. And okay, I could settle with that. But how can you not at least attempt in trying to throw out, even if it's a stupid offer, out to a guy like Cody Bellinger, who could really be used maybe as an outfielder or DH? How come we're not throwing out a guy like Jock Peterson, who I think personally could fit on this ball club? You still Kevin Pillar, Tyler Naquin, Cole Calhoun, just a couple guys. JD Martinez, a good DH, first baseman that you could also use from time to time. Daniel Vogelback, Jesse Winker's a free agent now. I don't want to just fill in slots that, hey, he's a cool name, so let's just throw him in there. But we could always use the extra pitching. We could always use the extra at-bats. And I think one thing that really prevents us from exploring that extra route is that we have to, it's probably the contract issue, obviously. Because I'm not paying Jurickson Profar 1 year, $10 million. I'm not paying a Cody Belling, and that's what they're expecting. You talk about, a Jesse Winker, he's going to probably want $15 million for a year or two. And I'm not willing to dig into our cash threshold. But all I'm trying to say is that it's frustrating if you know that there's still pieces that you can put together to help better your, situation, your cause, and you don't get it because the organization is playing because they're so dead set on making people that are still barely just getting into their start on the major league level. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I hope everyone enjoyed that interview. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And be sure to check us out later on this week. If you miss any of this, be sure to check us out on our website at www.tncsportstalkshow.com. That is www.tncsportstalkshow.com, where you can find all of our information going forward with the program. Well, that's all the time we have. My name is Justin, and until next time, you guys have yourself a wonderful afternoon. Take care.